tonight. Let your brother count on you every play tonight. Okay? And then come out and have fun. The gates are locked. Ain't nobody getting out now. They can't run. The gates are locked. Let's bring the fight to them, guys. Yes, sir. All right, brother. Let's pray.
The Northeast Texas Sports Network is dedicated on delivering the most entertaining sports broadcasts in East Texas. And if you're interested in having your next sporting event streamed live, visit us online at NET.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the bEast from the East show. It's week 6. It's Mr. NETSN, Brett Swinney here alongside of me tonight. Jaron Peoples, welcome back, Jaron. Missed you last week.
Yeah, so had some church activities going on, but excited to be back. I missed being on, and it was a good week of games, and excited to talk about them. And then we've got a pretty good slate of some games that some teams maybe we haven't picked a lot, had in our pick 'em so far. So excited to talk about those this week.
I think that's kind of the theme for me this year so far is we've had a lot of teams that are kind of surprising us, like coming out of nowhere. Some teams that maybe haven't been good in the recent years or maybe have been good in the past and just have kind of come back to form here as of late. We will have our KLTV correspondent, I like to call him K.O. Kyle Owens. He'll be joining us here shortly, but he may not want to join us for this first part. That's maybe why he's running late, Jaron, as we're going to talk about how we did last week before we start talking about games. Just looking at the leaderboard, we're going to give a shout out. We had a 2-way tie for first this week. We have Glenn Hart and Ridge England tied with 9. Good job, guys. Tough slate of games to pick. So you got 9 out of 10. That's pretty good. Still waiting for that first 10 out of 10. It's been a tough year for us. And usually by now we've had somebody that's gotten 10, but I'm sure somebody will hit that at some point. So I was down at 7 in 10th place. Not too bad. Jaron, you said you were down there with me.
Yeah, we're tied. We are tied.
Looks like Jason was there with us at 7 out of 10. Coach Hubbard, that maybe he'll come on the show sometime this now. It depends on how this game goes this week. He may or may not want to come on after that one. But Coach Hubbard down there at 7 as well. I may have to go down a few. I'm gonna let Kyle tell us how he did when he gets here. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. But it was some tough games this week. Really was. I picked with my heart a few times, and it got me in trouble this week, Darren. If I'd have picked probably with my brain, I might have got a couple more correct. And we'll talk about that as we go through here. But man, game 1, probably the shocker of the week for me. I mean, it just Wolf City just put the beat down on Timpson, Darren. I have this strange feeling it's going to really affect our polls when we get to that segment. But I was watching this game. Larry had this game on NETSN, and so I tuned in. And every time I tuned in, Wolf City had the ball, and they were just running through tackles. I know Kyle mentioned earlier against Westwood they had trouble tackling, and it looks like they did again. And I mean, how surprised were you at this one?
For sure. Now, obviously, we knew, and we've talked about this, that Timpson's not what they've been. I mean, obviously, we say this every week when we talk about them, but I mean, Bussey's a generational player, right? So you know you're gonna have a void. I don't care what you have there, you're gonna have a void. So they haven't been quite as strong, but I mean they're a program that's been good for a long time. So them falling to 2-2, it's kind of surprised me. And what was crazy, obviously, Wolf City went into this week undefeated, but and every win's a quality win. Don't get me wrong, but the competition I don't think was a super stiff. So you're like, okay, yeah, they're 3-0, but who have they played, right? Well, they came in and said it didn't matter, and they I mean, again, like you said, that's a 3-score win there, and 17-point score, so different. So yeah, it was a big win for Wolf City, and good for their program.
Yeah, it wasn't like they just came in and squeaked the win out. I mean, that was my key. If it had been one of those where we saw a close game or, but they took it right from the beginning of the game and just, it was kind of close there for a while, but they had the lead most of the game. It was Chimpson trying to chase, and they just couldn't make enough tackles. And you mentioned Terry Bussey, but Terry Bussey wasn't making every tackle last year. So I mean, he was making a lot of them, I'm sure, but he can't make every play. So you've got to have a team effort, and there's an issue with tackling. That's not good because if you can't tackle the other team in football, Jerry, that's usually not really good.
Yeah, but what's crazy, and I was talking with someone else about this the other day, is I mean, you're seeing on all levels of the sport, full wrap-ups, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like folks are having a hard time. Obviously we're sitting in our armchairs here, but making full wrap-up tackles, right? And that's an issue. You're seeing it in the pro level, the college level, high school level. So it's not just a thing unique to high school, and definitely not just unique to Timpson. I mean, that's a.
Oh, just looking down, there was some other Thursday games. That was the only one in our pick'em. I was in Carlisle as Shelbyville came to town, and I got to see Shelbyville in action for the first time this year. And Carlisle played with them for a while. But DJ Barnes, Jaron, I don't know how much of the game you got to watch. I think you were tuned in for some of it. But DJ Barnes is a player. Like he's athletic, he's mobile, but he didn't use a lot of he could have ran there several times, but he used his arm, and he can throw the football around the yard. I mean, he was just throwing darts. And as well as Carlisle played with Camacho and his team, he played well. They actually got a weekend preparation of him starting, and Carlisle looked good. I mean, they had some moments where it was just haymakers back and forth, and it was an enjoyable game to watch. And if you didn't get to see it, we have that game also on NETSN. We had this one in the Timpson game Thursday, but it was a really good game. I enjoyed it. I can see improvements in Carlisle from a few weeks ago when we covered them that very first game against Overton. But their schedule has been brutal, and so I think they've kind of prepared themselves by this district matchup coming up here. I think this next game will be district play, and I think they're ready. And Coach Sharp's got them prepared by playing this tough schedule.
Well, and it's going to be a tough district. And that's again those games really aren't. Well, we don't have a Carlisle game on our pick'em this week. We do have some games in that district, on our pick'em this week. But because you got some teams in that district that have really been playing well in Overton and Grapeland and Alto, Frankston. I mean, it's.
And we lost Sharon for a minute, but oh wait, he left the building. He was like Elvis Hernandez, and he left the building
I
there.
don't know where I went. I was talking, man. I was good. It's probably
You
the
were
best take I've ever had,
grooving.
man.
You were in groove, and then all of a sudden you left the building.
Probably best take I've ever had, man. Gosh. No, I'm just saying that whole district's playing. A lot of that district's playing well, and so we'll see. I mean, Loveladies in that district, they've had to get, so it's a gauntlet in itself, and so we'll see. Well, Overton's not in that district. I'm sorry, they're Division 2.
Yeah, because Carlisle is in a different district. They're with Cayuga, Crossroads.
That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. So that wasn't the best take I've ever had. So.
Yeah, well, we'll rewind it, but I mean that district is tough. You're in that Overton district, and it's a tough district because we have Mr. K.O. Kyle Owens. What's going on, Kyle?
What's up, guys? How are we doing tonight?
We're doing good. I'm gonna go back to our first little part segment because you missed it, so I want to make sure that you get to tell us how did you do this week, Kyle.
We don't have to talk about that. We can continue forward with
Sharon,
your scheduled programming.
Yeah, I think that's why you came in late, because you didn't want to talk about how you did this week. Because we were going head up last week. Every time I throw a name out, you threw the other name. So,
Well.
Oh. Well, he didn't want to tell us.
There it is.
There you
go. You took me out. I didn't take myself out.
I
You
didn't
took
mean
me
to.
out. Anyway, I
did take you out this week, Kyle. That's a good.
Listen, I said last week that this week's either going to get me back in the game or it's going to be Hail Marys from here on out. And baby, it's Hail Mary season.
So stay tuned for those picks, because Kyle's throwing some Hail Marys. That's interesting.
Absolutely right. I'm underdogging every pick.
We kind of talked about we were just started the pick'ems, Kyle, and we were talking about we talked about the Timpson game, and then I kind of looked at the other Thursday games. We actually had Shelbyville Carlisle, so we were talking about those two. Give us your take on those two games from last week.
Well, I mean, it's tough for Timpson. I hate it for Timpson and for them to lose J.J. Garner. Now, we don't know how long he's going to be out or anything like that. But
so we didn't know that. When did that happen?
Y'all didn't know that? Okay.
No, we didn't see that.
Yeah, so he well, if you watch Red Zone, you would have seen it in the highlights, but I digress.
My bad.
Anyway, so JJ, I don't know what happened, but in the first half, something happened with his hand, his right hand. And so he got it wrapped up and put in a soft cast Friday or Thursday night during the game, which is not a good sign if they're already putting it in a soft cast on the sideline. So when he went out of the game, I think it was 14-7 Wolf City or something like that. So I don't know how long. I don't know how the seriousness of it. I don't know how long he's going to be out, but that's a big blow to that Timpson team that already was shorthanded a little bit. Now to lose your star quarterback and not just quarterback, because he plays defense too, because that's how Timpson's a small school. So tough loss for Timpson. I'm interested to see what they look like going forward, especially the health of JJ and all that. So a tough loss there. But you talked about that Shelbyville game, man. I was cutting highlights for it also, which were on Red Zone Overtime, actually. Not on the actual Red Zone show, but they're on Red Zone Overtime. You can check out the highlights online. Anyway, the Shelby, when I was cutting those, I said, dang, these are a lot of highlights in this first half. Like, it
probably took you a while to cut those highlights.
It did. It took me longer than normal, because normally I could just grab 2 or 3 touchdowns and then boom. But I was like, man, they just keep scoring back and forth. I'm going to get all of these in there. So that was a fun one to watch. It looks like Shelbyville kind of pulled away in the second half. And we talked about that Carlisle team, how they're younger this year, and they're going to take some on the chin this year. But I think these next couple of years we'll see a much better Carlisle football team. I want to talk about the game I was at, though, Brett. I was in Big Sandy for the Big Sandy game against Harleton. Yeah, my favorite school. I will say this. Listen, what was really funny, so for a little backstory, the whole beef between me and Harleton goes back to a basketball game. Brett, the first one that we did for NetSN, actually, I think, with K-Moo tied in. Anyway, they came off the bus, opening tip, did a stall offense. Like they just held the ball at center court and Brett was there. He can attest. It was terrible basketball to watch. Like it was defeat from off the bus is what we took it as. And so we talked about it on air, and somebody told the coach, and the coach did not like it and confronted us after the game about it. And anyway, so that's where Harleton doesn't care for me too much. I have no issue with Harleton. I just said what everybody in the arena was thinking. Anyway, but what's interesting though, Friday night is that I thought to myself, I'm like, I bet you these guys are going to milk this all the way down to like 1 or 2 seconds left on the play clock every time because of the type of offense they ran. No, they didn't. They actually came out of the huddle and sprinted up to the line of scrimmage and then snapped it quick.
Wow.
So I was like,
hey, so they need to take that to the basketball court and take that same offensive playbook.
Yeah, they do. But anyway, all that aside, so I'm sure that'll get me in trouble with them again for bringing all that up. But anyway, so the game though itself, Harleton jumped out to a lead, a 14-0 lead, got up on Big Sandy early, and actually led 20-13 at halftime. But Big Sandy pitched a shutout in the second half and scored 21 unanswered to come back and win that game 34-20. So big win for Coach Pullum and the Wildcats. They're now 2-0 in district, and I tell you what, they're going to be playing this Beckville team next week, and Beckville's tough. But with the fight that Big Sandy just showed, I mean, I wouldn't count the Wildcats out either. So fun games on Thursday.
Well, and we won't talk. We don't necessarily talk about all of it, but man, that district that's going to be a crazy. See how that all plays out. I mean, because every one of those teams are playing well, and with Wascom, Union Grove, Hawkins, Beckville. So obviously, I think Beckville will probably come away with it, but that's some good football going to be played. They're going to beat up on each other.
All right. So let's see. Just to recap that first game, 7 people had Wolf City out of the 62 picks available. So I would think that's a little pretty. I think that may have been actually that wasn't. No, that was the upset special week, I believe. So, but man. That was actually no, it wasn't. The last game of the week was the upset special. We'll get to that one. I'd scroll all the way down. But that was the second biggest upset of the weekend. All right, so game 2, we talked about it a second ago. Kyle, I think you were at this one. This was the red zone game of the week as Beckville beat Elysian Fields. Tell us a little bit about that one.
I mean, this one was Beckville was impressive. First off, there was no room in the press box for me, so I was on the sideline keeping stats on my phone, which sounds like it was a bad idea, but it was really kind of cool because you're still in the action on the sidelines, and unlike shooting highlights, I don't have to run back and forth. I could just stay with the ball and kind of keep up. So
did you make a tackle on the sideline? Did you get in the action?
No, but I also didn't move very fast when the action was coming my way. I kind of wanted to be involved in the action. Okay. So, but it was a good game. It was a fun game to be a part of. Elysian Fields' only touchdown in the first half was on a strip fumble in return 5 yards for a touchdown. After a great punt, pinned Beckville at the 1 yard line. They tried to run out of the end zone and he got stripped and they scored early on, and that's how Elysian Fields got their first points. But it was really the Jordan Prince show. Jordan Prince, the younger brother of Jacoby Williams, who's at Texas Tech now, was at Beckville last year. And Prince had 6 rushing touchdowns on the night, well over 200 yards rushing on 29 carries. So he had a great, outstanding game. But even the surrounding pieces, I mentioned this on overtime, the blocking by the receivers on the outside, J.T. Smith, who doubles as an excellent basketball player for the Beckville Bearcats. He caught a touchdown pass in the game, and he was blocking his tail off on the outside. All the receivers were. So that's what – and the line was opening up big holes in the middle, and then Prince was doing the rest by making the rest of the team miss. Now, I will say for Elysian Fields, I don't think they're as bad as the score indicated because it was 60-28, Beckville winning. I think Elysian Fields in the first half had a fumble on offense that Beckville returned deep into Elysian Fields territory and ended up scoring. Then on the ensuing kickoff, right after that, they fumbled the kickoff and Beckville picks it up, and then they go and score on that one. So back-to-back fumbles in the first half. They fumbled another one in the third, I think, and then there was a pick right before halftime. So 4 turnovers for Elysian Fields really kind of shot themselves in the foot. They got a ton of athletes over there, though. Their quarterback is Brody Parker, stocky kid, real stocky kid, and he's very athletic. He can make some plays. And then the running back Brandon Kennedy, I believe, at number 4, he has some great speed out there too. So Elysian Fields is a good football team. Like they're really good. I think it says more about how good Beckville is. You know, they've been flying under the radar kind of all season long, just winning games, just doing what Beckville does. But seeing them in person, they have everything that it needs to. It looks like they need to make a good run this year. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah, Nunu Kennedy for Elysian Fields. He also plays baseball. He's a good athlete. And
okay, yeah,
and so that Elysian Fields team. Man, I'm obviously coming off a loss, but man, I'm real happy for Coach Crow. You know, they've been working hard. This, I think, his 3rd season. It's kind of had a rough go for a little bit, but you're right. They have some athletes. Brody Parker, Swank's a good one. You know, they got a lot in the junior, senior class, and so it's like I said a while ago. That district's going to be pretty fun as it plays out.
It's fun depending on who you're talking to, Jerry.
well, I don't know. It may be fun for. I mean, it's definitely going to be fun for Beckville, but then it's going to be fun for.
I think maybe fun for the fans to watch. The coaches maybe pulling their hair out, but
yeah.
But fun for us to watch. Did you guys all have? Did anybody have? Kyle, I think you had Elysian Fields, didn't you? Oh, you had Beckville. Anybody have Elysian Fields?
No, I had Beckville.
Okay. I had Beckville too.
So we all had Timpson as well, I think, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I picked with my heart in this next game, guys. And it came back and got me. Kyle, I was talking to Jerry before you got on, and I said I did pretty good this week. But if I'd have picked with my head instead of my heart, I probably would have got a couple more picks correct. This was one of them. Our NETSN Rusk Eagles went to Canton, played well early. I think it was a 7-3 game. I think at halftime.
It was.
They've just got to wait. Coach Sitton and the company's just got to find something on offense. They just can't get anything in the end zone. They're really struggling there. Held Canton to 21, but that's decent not on defense. But if you can't score but 3, then you're going to have a tough time winning. And so they got knocked off by Canton 21-3. Me and 5 others had Rusk, so I wasn't the only one that was going on the Rusk Eagle train. Maybe it was probably 5 Rusk Eagles parents, but it's okay. They play hard. They got a district coming up where I think it's kind of wide open. I feel like Center made a statement this week. We'll talk about that one here in a minute, but I think Center and Carthage are ahead of the class. I think maybe Athens is right there with them underneath, but that 4th spot, I mean, you could any of those. I mean, Bullard, Brownsboro, Rusk, and who's the other team? Is there one other team? Think of it. I can't. I don't have it in front of me here. Probably should.
Brownsboro, Bullard, Athens, Carthage, Center, Rusk.
Okay, so it is just those 3. So there's a 6-team district then. Okay, so I think any of those 3 teams. I mean, if you're looking at Rusk and you're like, okay, I think they could beat Brownsboro. I think they could beat Bullard. So they still have a chance to make the playoffs. So there's still something to play for in that district. But I am excited to see how that plays out. What do you guys think about this game?
That was a game I did. I broadcasted that game.
You were there. You were there. You were outside in the elements.
Yeah,
Gary was with the people.
The cricket infestation. Man, it was crazy. But then we were right in the middle of the Canton crowd. There was a lot of folks there. That Canton crowd is crazy. And it was homecoming. And then I don't know if y'all have seen the broadcast, but when they score, their lights go dim and they flash. And for a broadcaster, that makes your heart stop because you think you lost power. So that happened at least 3 times. And And what's interesting is you had some guys not playing the first half for Rusk because of some activities the previous week, and so, but the offense really looked better. Those 3 points came, early in the game. That offense really looked better the first half, and but that Canton team they can come at you a few different directions on the ground, and so it kind of ran away with it, but the defense was good for us for really a bit better part of the game, and so excited to see how that defense continues to grow, and I think that's going to be the calling card for that team.
I mean, we weren't sure last week, Brett, when we were talking. We both had differing opinions on where these two teams were, and what I'm impressed with when I go back and look. I know Canton hasn't. We talked about it last week. It hasn't been the best opponents in the non-district schedule, but you beat who's in front of you. And what I'm impressed with is they may not be lighting up the scoreboard offensively, but they're also not giving up a lot of points. They gave up 8 to Community, none to Waxahachie Life, 16 to North Lamar, which is the season high, and then 0 to Maybank and 3 to Rusk. So I'm a big proponent of defense wins championships. And the key to, defense travels too. Like you can have defense on the road or at home. So I think that, and Jaron, you were there, so you know better than me, but I think Canton's defense is the impressive part that they've been able, because even in years past, they've been able to light up the scoreboard, but they couldn't stop anybody. So now this year, it seems like they finally got that defense kind of gelling and playing good football. And this Canton team, man, they could make some noise in their district too.
Well, one thing that was very much in their favor is that they ate up time of possession real well. I mean, they kept the ball for a long time. They kept that rush defense on the field for a long time. And I think that was a big deal. And that's why I think as the game went on, I mean, it was really the fourth quarter when it started to kind of get a little bit away from Rusk. And again, I think just because the defense was on the field so long, and because that Canton offense knew how to move the ball and knew how to move it well enough to not just go and just run and shoot the whole time, but be pretty methodical about their drives.
Well, you got this district, guys, with Ferris, Canton, Kemp, Quinlan Ford, Sunnyvale, Wills Point, and Fort Worth Castleberry. So it's an interesting little district. Canton's kind of the outlier. They're, I guess, the only true East Texas team that's really in that district. I mean, I don't know if you consider. I mean, I'm sure. Wills Point's on the edge. I mean, I'm sure the professor doesn't claim them because Wills Point hasn't been good. But if Wills Point was a powerhouse, they would definitely.
Speaking of the professor, did you see him claim Paris and Sulphur Springs?
Yeah.
In the north, in the DFW.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because of their district that they're in with Frisco and all that, but he claimed them as they're in North Texas now.
So I grew up in Paris, okay, and let me tell you, it is not DFW. I was there this week. It is not DFW, and so yeah, I'm one of them, so I can say that, and yeah, no, it ain't.
That triggered that memory.
We need to get the professor to come on one of our shows, just so he can
be the highest rated show.
Does he claim North Lamar too? Or is he just claiming Paris?
Ooh,
good
point. Good point. I don't know.
Anybody that's good that he thinks is in a district that's somebody in DFW, he'll claim them easily. No, nothing wrong. Now, looking down through here, the game of the week might have been on NETSN as Center and Madisonville come down to the wire. Center kicks a field goal at the end of the game to get the win 17-14. And the Center Rough Riders, 5-0. We're going to have a battle here in a few weeks between them and Carthage. I'm looking forward to that one. We'll really know how good Center is when they play Carthage. But I think that they're maybe a better team than what we first thought. We thought they've lost a couple of players, last year to graduation, and they've come out and put an impressive schedule. And it's not like they've played cupcakes. They've played some tougher teams, and Madisonville has been in the top 10 of the state this year. They've played a tough schedule, so they've been challenged with North DeSoto. Jaron's familiar with them and how good they are in the Louisiana area. So it'll be interesting to see. We kind of had this game on as well, kind of keep watching it down to the end, and crazy play at the end as Madisonville, got a pass completed, and I think they got tackled around the 20-yard line as time expired. But shout out to the Rough Riders to get the win and got me a victory. And only 8 people had Madisonville, but one of them was Mr. K.O. Collins. Kyle, how you feeling about that pick?
I mean, I wanted to take center. I did, and I overthought it and went with my head. Classic Kyle, overthinking, And so I just overthought it and went with Madisonville. But I mean, that's two close games that Madisonville has had this year with East Texas teams in Malakoff and Center that have both come down to the wire. So I mean, this Madisonville team I think is the real deal too. I think the Madisonville team is a really good football team. I just think, and I guess I thought with Center losing, Monty Cross and their quarterback and other key players on that team, I thought they would drop off. But it seems that they might be better than last year right now. So I'm impressed with the Center team. And yeah, next week. Not this week, but next week when Center travels to Carthage, that will be a big time game.
Well,
where you can find the game, Kyle?
I believe you can find it right here on NetSN.
Yeah, you can.
So the kind of joke around, what some folks say around Carthage is, you get to district, then you just kind of coast until you get to the playoffs. And I'm not saying that Center is going to beat Carthage, but I really think in what we see on this Center team, it's going to be a dogfight at least for part of the game, and I think this team's turning some heads, and that's the thing. They're not just. I mean, this win against Madisonville was a 17-14. It wasn't just a shootout like several of their wins have been. I mean, it was a close, tight, low scoring game, and so the defense had their part as well. So I'm excited to see again. Don't necessarily think they're going to beat Carthage, but I think number 2 in that district's probably theirs. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So
I want to mention something because I talked about defense earlier. We ragged on Center's defense last year because they could not stop anything, and that was to their detriment. Now, they would get in a ton of shootouts and win some of those, but they couldn't get those stops. If you look at their scores this year, like you said, just 14 now to Madisonville. Dangerfield, they only allowed 23. If you go back a year ago, that Dangerfield game, it was 28-21. That's not the point that I was trying to make there. Thought that was going to be different. That fell flat on its face. Anyway, my point being, though, is that Center has given up less points this year than they did last year, which goes to how much improved they are. And I think to their benefit, obviously, that a stronger defense now, they don't have to score 70 points to win a game. They can put up 17 and know that the defense has their back now, and that's just making them a stronger team.
Yeah, I did that Tatum Center game last year, that week 1 game, where it was, I think it was like a 90, 95 combined total point game. It was insane.
90, 95 combined. Center scored 80 by themselves.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry. It's been a year. But I did that game. But it was
so that was a long night.
It was a really long night. You're right. It's been a bit, but
no, you're right, Kyle. 28 points is the most they've allowed this year for Center. They had that twice, and I think that's going to be a key. They get this Carthage game out of the way early. They get a bye before Carthage is going to have to go travel to go play. Was it San Benito? Right, is where they're going. Mm-hmm. So Carthage.
They're playing in Bay City, but it's San Benito.
Still they're gonna have to travel a long way, have to prep for another team. Center gets 2 weeks to prepare for this. I think that's also a big key. You get an extra week to prepare for somebody. You get to sit at home and probably watch their game. You get healthy. Carthage doesn't get that. They're gonna to prepare for this team here. Then they get a week to prepare for Center. So I think that's an advantage.
That's gonna be a good game. That's gonna be a good game.
Maybe a red zone game of the week. I don't know. It could be a candidate.
It's definitely a candidate. And the only negative is we did Carthage as a game of the week in week 1. So, but I think you can make a point if you have, Center and who's undefeated taking on Carthage. That's, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
You're right, KO. That went back and looked at that score. It's 80-63.
Oh my God.
I was there.
Golly. 143 points. Wow, that's something
insane.
Yeah.
All right, next one up here we've got Overton knocks off Grapeland, which Jaron tried to tell me this was the other way around. He's like, Overton lost, man.
I looked at it wrong.
You looked at the wrong app. If you'd looked at NETSN
Yeah, I
out there,
know.
and you
Yeah,
would have got the right
DCTF had me
score.
wrong. Yeah.
I mean,
But I'm telling you, Overton, and we've done them a couple times. We'll do them some more. It's one of the funner teams in East Texas. I tell you, that is a fun team to broadcast.
yeah, they've got some athletes, and they can put up some points quickly. Did a quick strike offense there with Bryce Steele.
Hey, Grapeland had the favorite. 35 folks picked Grapeland over Overton.
Yeah, it was 35-34. I had Overton in that one. Kyle, did you have Overton?
I had Overton.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was making sure. You picked a
Now,
lot against me last week.
I will say though, I'm impressed with this Grapeland team because their 2 losses are to Frankston by 3, who I think we all agree Frankston's a really good football team, and they only lost by 3 in Frankston to them, and then their other loss to Overton by 5. Like that's Grapeland's a salty team.
This district, guys, of Overton's in is tough.
Yeah.
We were mentioning it a while ago. So let's see. We got Overton, you got Grapeland, you got Tenaha, you got Lovelady, you got Alto, you got Mount Enterprise, and you got Cushing. I mean, man, you look at these teams. Alto was 5-0, Lovelady 3-2, Overton 4-1, Mount Enterprise 4-0, Cushing's 2-3, Grapeland 3-2, Tenaha's 1-4. So I mean, you look at that, you're thinking you got Alto, Lovely, Overton, Mount Enterprise, and Grapeland probably fighting for the 4 spots. But that's going to be some good little games here. I don't want to make too many predictions, but I have a feeling that we might be seeing a couple of those in our Pick'em challenge here shortly.
Don't sleep on Mount Enterprise. I mean, they
For
could be
sure.
battling for that 4th spot, or maybe not even the 4th, maybe higher than the 4th. I think Alto, Lovelady, maybe you're 1 and 2. But then Mount Enterprise Overton, that could be a big game in November when they play.
Yeah, we're working on some Overton games, I believe, trying to add them to the slate. Jerry and I've been working on that because there's that district. There's going to be some really good matchups in there.
Yeah, we're working on maybe that Overton at Lovelady game, which I think will be a great game.
All right. So did you guys have Overton? Anybody have Grapeland in that one?
I had Overton for sure.
Okay. This one was about as close as it could have gotten, 35-34. It was an underdog pick, which is surprising, but needless to say, I know this next game though. I got to ask KO about this next game. White Oak, Atlanta, Kyle. Do you believe in Atlanta now?
Well, listen, I let outside pressures make me think that White Oak was better than I believed them to be, and I was proven right. I do believe this Atlanta team is pretty salty. I do think you put up 71. I don't care who it's against. Like that's a big number. So tough loss for White Oak, but it's only the first loss of the year. It's not like it's the end of the world for the Roughnecks over there. So it's not too bad.
Kyle, let me let you in on a secret here. Let me tell you who White Oak's got coming up. Okay. They got Jefferson, Sabine, which is struggling, so that might be a winnable game. Liberty Ilo, Tatum, and Gladewater. Ouch. You might go from 5-0 to no playoffs.
I think. Well, maybe I'm still sipping the Kool-Aid a little bit, but I think maybe Liberty. I guess so. You're saying Atlanta, Jefferson, Tatum, and Liberty Ilo, the 4 teams in the playoffs.
That's probably who. That's who I would think is going to make it.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't. White Oak could have been White Oak had a rough night. They had an off night, and they still put up 40.
They had a roughneck night. Oh,
they still put up 40 points. So the offense was working. I wouldn't count out White Oak just
I'm
yet.
not counting them out. I'm just saying that's tough. That's a tough ask.
It's a tough road.
That's how good this district is. They go 5-0. They come in. They get this first or 4-1. They go 4-0, and they come into this very first district game, and it's like, man, now reality sets in. They got a rough schedule here coming through. They're gonna have to upset somebody. I would think that I think they're underdog against Jefferson, Liberty Ilo, and Tatum. I mean, Tatum, they made a little bit of a statement this week too in their game.
Probably an underdog to Gladewater too.
Yeah. So it's going to be tough.
I mean, that district, that's a gauntlet. Golly. And I tell you, I think we'll learn a lot about Atlanta this week. That Jefferson team, man, and that player they have, that Cameron Williams, he's legit. And he's a good player.
Yeah, Jefferson, they've been successful so far. They've beat everybody by a pretty good margin, and minus DCAB. It was the closest game, a 6 there, but that district's going to have some good games. I feel there may be some of those. We talked about that last district. We got some really good districts that are going to provide some good pick'em games and some challenges for us and the people at home. So it's going to be interesting. All right. The next one, no surprise. We had an unanimous pick here. Not a 69 out of 69 pick Carthage. No surprise there, as Carthage got the win over Jasper. Now, I don't know, the score, it wasn't as bad as what I might have thought it might have been, just because what I saw them play against Chapel Hill. Now, we saw Chapel Hill play this week, and it's one of our games here. We'll come up next. But there was a little difference when the quarterback was changed. Brisbane joined back in the lineup. So I think that game, I know that game would have been a lot closer with Brisbane in there. So we'll take that into effect. But I think Carthage now, they're going to travel. We just talked about it, and get ready for their district play coming up after that, and the Center Rough Riders on their map. We're not surprised by this, right, guys? I mean, this was expected.
I'm just surprised they didn't score more.
Yeah.
They were already subbing in the early third quarter. So. Oh,
okay. Good inside information there. Thanks, Sharon. Get that inside Kilgore information or Carthage information. The next one, though, I got to talk to my man KO. Are you still? Yeah, I know. Corey's not here. If Corey was here, I'd be talking to him, Kyle. But he's disappeared all of a sudden. I don't know what happened to Corey. He's there for a few weeks. He came in, he's all upside down and spun around, and then he just hasn't come back. I don't know what's going on, but I would be on him. But since we're joining the Shine Tree bandwagon, which not saying they're not good. They're a very good football team, but my pick was Kilgore, and the reason is because their pedigree. I don't know how good Pine Tree is. I think they're pretty good, but I don't know if they're Kilgore good. That's why I went with Kilgore. But we saw a really good game Friday night. Kyle, what did you think about the outcome there?
I'm still on the Shine Tree bandwagon. I still think they're great. I think that, truthfully, I believe it'll come down to that Pine Tree Lindale game for the 3 and 4 seed. Not discounting Henderson. Henderson could throw a wrench into all of this because they're scoring a ton of points right now too. But I think that Pine Tree and Lindale will be battling for that 3 seed in district. So Pine Tree's still a really good football team, but this was a litmus test to see where Pine Tree's at, and for Coach Bachman to see how far he's brought this program now. And so I think now you see they didn't get blown out. I mean, they were in this ball game with Kilgore to the very end. So I think you can take some positives from it. Obviously you wanted to win and you wanted to keep the undefeated record. It's a first district loss, which, there's a lot of negatives you could look at, but if you look at the positives, listen, how would this game have looked 2 years ago? Last year, how would these games have looked then, and compare it to that and see that you are making progress. You're not where you want to be yet, but you are making progress. So I think it's a positive for Pine Tree and for Kilgore. It gives you confidence because there was a lot of chatter about Pine Tree, a lot of chatter about, could Pine Tree maybe upset Kilgore? And, Coach Fuller and the Bulldogs over there are listening to that. They hear that. They take that into consideration. So they went out there and handled business and went to Pine Tree to beat the Pirates. So I'm excited to see how this district plays out too.
Hey, good news for Shine Tree, Kyle, is they get to go to Maybank next week.
Yeah, it's a get-right game. They got a get-right game next week.
All right, Jerry, what'd you think?
Yeah, so I went with Pine Tree just because I was riding that train. And I still think they're good. Like you said, Kay, I still think they're a good football team. Obviously, they've got a few weeks where I think, they got a Maybank, then they have their bye week, then Henderson, and then you got Chapel Hill and Lindale back to back. And I think that's where we'll learn even more about about that team. And it's that third and fourth spot in that district's what I'm kind of interested in there. I think obviously Chapel Hill and Kilgore will sew up the top two spots, but be interesting to see who ends up with that third spot.
All right. Well, you talked about Chapel Hill. We have the next game up. We had the battle of the alma maters between me and Kyle, and unfortunately, Kyle, you took another L here. I got the win. Now they kind of scared me a little bit late because we started giving them a little hope back. Well, I let them have some points there toward the end, but for the most part, this game was all Chapel Hill until the end. They got a couple of touchdowns to make it a little bit closer, but honestly, they got Brisbane back. It was what I thought. They kind of got back on track here. Lindale's always going to be a tough opponent, so no discounting them. They're always a good team. So I think it's a good win for Chapel Hill to get back on track. And they're going to have this every other week where they've got to prepare for an opponent that's going to test them. I don't think I think it's going to be, Henderson, obviously, I think that's an interesting team still. I think that'll be an interesting game at the end of the season, but they got Palestine next. Just Coach Reyes and that group has just really been struggling. I know he's got to change the offense, and he lost Denman to Westwood. So there's some things he's got to get situated, but they just had a tough season. So not to saying that's a gimme game. Palestine has given Chapel Hill trouble a couple times over the last several years, but they've got, and you don't want to let them, as Corey would say, it could be a trap game. I would think this will be one he would call. You've got Kilgore looking on the horizon the next week. You don't want to overlook this game and not focus on it. But I think getting the win over a talented Lindale team is a good bounce back after that just disappointment, honestly, against Carthage. I think that not the losing was disappointment. It was the score. It was the difference of the score there. I think that, that's not something that they want to get used to doing, is losing by that much. So I don't know, Kyle, what did you think about this from a Lindale perspective?
It was a tough one. But like I said last week when we were making the pick, my pick was really dependent on, is Brisbane playing? I didn't think he was going to play. I thought there was no way he was going to play, but he was out there, and from what I understand, he was out there balling. It was a lot of Ricky Stewart too that really made some key runs there. But I think if you're Lindale, okay, you took one on the chin to Chapel Hill. Like you said, they tried to come back at the end, but I think the score was a little maybe a little closer than the game actually was overall, like you were talking about. But Lindale goes into a bye week this week, and then they get to play Palestine coming out of their bye week. So I think you have a couple of weeks here to get things right and get some people healthy this week with the bye week, and then go into Palestine, really get back that momentum, get back some momentum going. It's as you got to face Kilgore right after that. So I don't think it's time to panic if you're in Lindale. Like I said, I think Lindale Henderson game, Lindale Pine Tree game, those are going to be key
Last two games of the season for Lindale, Kyle. So it's going to come down to that last two.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now, maybe they go to Kilgore and still win in Kilgore, and then those last two are more seeding. Who knows? But like we've talked about, we think Kilgore and Chapel Hill are the top two in this district that are going to battle it out for the district title, which is unfortunate that it's the same week that Carthage and Center are playing. I just noticed that. It's very unfortunate that those are on the same night. So
good news
maybe
is
we can do a double game of the week.
Well, good news is one of those is on NETSN. Can't say the same for the other one. But one of them is on NETSN, so
that's true.
We'll have
but
that.
For Chapel Hill, I think it's you get Brisbane back, and the key, how healthy can he stay the rest of the year? Now I know you got Ricky, you got others on offense that can do things, but like we talked about last week, I think, and we saw it against Carthage. Like you said, I don't think Chapel Hill beats Carthage even with a healthy Brisbane, but I think the score is a lot closer for sure. So I think it was important to see Chapel Hill get back some rhythm on the offense that they kind of missed against Carthage. So I think it's a positive for Chapel Hill, and like now they get to go and play a Palestine team that is struggling a little bit right now. But I think that Chapel Hill is rolling right now, and it's gonna in a couple of weeks. I don't think they're overlooking Palestine to look at Kilgore. I think Coach Reardon won't let them do that.
Darren, what you got?
Yeah, so I mean, I had Chapel Hill on that game, and even with, I mean, I had an idea that Brisbane would play, but not really on any inside, just a hunch. But I think like we talked about, I think Chapel Hill and Kilgore 1-2 in that district. So
Okay. In our last game of the pick'em, the biggest upset special of the week, the Troop Tigers, with 4 people out of the poll that picked him. I have a feeling I can name several of those. One being intern Claire, I'm sure probably picked Troop in her pick'em. And Jason, the ARP Tiger, says he picked Troop in this one as well. I know it's my cousin Jason, graduated from ARP.
You can't do that. I just proved it with the Lindale game. You have to pick your alma mater.
But he just had a feeling that Troop was going to beat him. I don't know, So, did either one of you had Troop?
no, I had ARP.
That's just what I'd seen from ARP. And maybe we should have been more impressed with Troop's win over Rusk, jumping up a couple of divisions and winning. But I just didn't think that was that big of a win. And so it kind of worries me about the ARP Tigers now. I mean, is Troop now the favorite in that district? I mean, West Rusk is there, but they were trailing Elkhart at part of the point in their game. So
no, New Diana will win.
You do remember New Diana's in that.
Yeah,
that's true. New Diana's in there. So I guess we'll see. But now I'm looking forward to that Troop New Diana game. I think that will be. I think they're probably the best 2 teams now. I mean, I don't want to get any West Rusk people mad at me, but they just haven't looked real good this year to me. Just looking at the scores and stuff that we've seen from some of their games, I know they've been just good for so long and kind of have had their way in this district for so long. But they're going to have some problems. They've got coming up, they've got Winona, so they'll get another win there. But they're going to finish with New Diana, Troop, Buffalo, and ARP. So we'll know down the stretch how good West Rusk is going to be. But I'm impressed with Troop. I'll give it to them. They got the win, and in a rivalry game like that, you kind of throw the records out the window. And I was a little surprised that ARP wasn't able to come home with that. But we'll see how it affects the rest of them. We will have one of the ARP district games in Buffalo. I believe that's this week. That's one of our games that we're going to have on NETSN. So we'll get to have them on NETSN and kind of get some good video and get to kind of watch them and see what they look like this year, since this will be the only broadcast game for them all year. So be interesting to see how that works. But I mean, what do you guys think about this, the 7 Mile rivalry, Battle of the Tigers result?
I picked ARP because I was drinking the Kool-Aid and I was impressed with the Garrison win. But you were talking about maybe we should look at that Rusk win that Troop had and look at it differently. I'm looking at that first loss of the year to Shelbyville, and I know that Troop played down to Shelbyville, but you just saw that Shelbyville team on Thursday night.
They're good, and
Troop lost by 13, but I mean played them tight, played them close, hung with them. So I think you look at that, and then even Edgewood's a solid football team, and that's an L that Troop took that doesn't look very good, but maybe those games prepared them for this little stretch of games that they've gone on these last 3 games to get these wins over Harleton, Rusk, and ARP, and the last 2 on the road, which I think is real impressive too. I think they should be able to handle Elkhart and Winona these next couple of weeks, and then looming on the horizon at home, though, they get New Diana at home, and I think that's a big deal to get New Diana at home. So that'll be a fun one on the 18th.
Yeah, I was drinking that Kool-Aid with ARP too, but I think you're onto something, KO, with Troop, and maybe those first 2 losses although they were losses, they were games that kind of conditioned them a little bit, for the stretch. And I think you might be onto something there. And, that good win in Harleton, that impressive win over 4A Rusk. And then, anytime you get a rivalry game, that's encouraging for you. So,
Yeah, and Edgewood was actually in their district last year. They were in the district with them last. That's one that's a familiar opponent. Maybe Edgewood has played them over the last couple of years. They knew how to contain what Russ does or what Troop does. So they've seen them a lot. So that could to have an effect on it as well. But that's interesting that was such a lopsided win. I'm a little surprised by the lopsidedness of it, but you're right on the Shelbyville one. I mean, they are good. Like DJ Barnes is the real deal. Like he is, and
he's so big at quarterback too.
And you could tell he was holding it back. Like he could have taken off running on several times, but they're saving him. They need him down the stretch with the likes of Garrison, Timpson, St. Augustine, Joaquin, and Hemphill on the schedule. I mean, that's going to be a banger of a district there. So I look for them. I mean, they're good. If Timpson doesn't have JJ Garner in the long run, I think it's Shelbyville and Garrison's district there, because I mean he does so much for Timpson. Like, and if you can't tackle, you ain't going to tackle this Shelbyville team. I mean, if you can't tackle, they're going to put up a lot of points on you. I mean, Carlisle's not the greatest team in the world, but they're a solid team, and they put up 64 on them. I mean, it was impressive. All right, guys, let's look at our polls for this week. We'll start with the 6A 5A poll. What do you guys have for your 6A 5A? I'll give you mine here. I've got it's kind of stayed the same. I did bring a new team into the poll this week after some losses. I got Texas High at 1, Longview 2, Lufkin 3, Marshall 4, and into the poll, Kyle's favorite team, the Nacogdoches Dragons, are jumping into the poll with a 3-2 record.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't think about Nacogdoches jumping in. I added a new team as well, but It was not Nacogdoches. My top 4 is same as yours, but my 5th team I put in there is the Tyler Legacy Red Raiders.
Okay.
2 consecutive wins, and they got a big win to open up district play last week. I think Legacy has a good thing going right now, so I went ahead. I know their record isn't better than Nacogdoches's, but I think Legacy has picked up some big wins these past couple weeks, so I gave them some love.
All right, Jaron?
Yeah, so I had Texas High, Longview, Lufkin. Then I just flip-flopped to Marshall and White House. White House after that loss to Mount Pleasant. But, I mean, I thought about Legacy. I'd like to see another win before I put them in there. Tyler High played Highland Park fairly close. And so kind of thought about Tyler High for a minute, but
no love for Nacogdoches?
No.
3-2 on the year?
They did come in well. I mean, but look at White House. I mean, yeah.
I don't know. It's hard for me to put a team that has a losing record in the poll. That's
well. Time out though, Brett. They beat Jacksonville.
Got to beat who's on your schedule, Kyle. That's all I can.
By 13.
Okay.
No shade at NAC or Jacksonville, but I'm just saying.
Well, they'll have some games on their schedule that we'll see in this district.
But I guess by that argument, Legacy beat Rockwall Heath by 1 in overtime, and I put them in. So I mean, by that theory, then
Legacy got beat by Tyler High, and if I don't put Tyler High in the poll, then why would I put Tyler Legacy in the poll?
That was earlier in the year. What have you done for me lately? We take past games into consideration, especially 6A, 5A. There's not a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Look at 2 of White House's losses against Kilgore and Chapel Hill, and Chapel Hill is by 2 points. I mean, and then they beat a really good Paris team.
Mount Pleasant. So let's put
Mount
Pleasant.
A really good Paris team.
They got 2 losses
points.
though.
Mount Pleasant hadn't won a game until they beat White House. That's a bad L.
That is a bad loss.
But I'm looking at over 5 weeks. All right, over 5 weeks. Again, that Paris team's no joke. They beat Pleasant Grove. Let's not forget that. And White House beat them by 20. All right. They lost to Chapel Hill by 2. All right.
Yeah,
You have bad nights. You're allowed to
we know why that game was 2-point game, Jaron. I was there. Okay. It was there.
Well, but hold on. To Jaron's point, didn't Chapel Hill come back when Brisbane got hurt?
Yeah, it was all Ricky Stewart.
Okay. Well, that's fair. Never mind.
You've seen that Ricky Stewart guy. You know that guy that's going to my favorite school in college, that University of Texas?
Yeah. I've seen him a time or two. He's all right. He's decent.
Yeah. Very, very humble kid too. Like he just is kind of there, and he's a good kid. Like my man Ricky Stewart. All right. The tabulation on the polls this week, we have for the overall votes, our other voters, Jeremy Hubbard and Brandon Ogden also got their votes in. So we have Texas High at 1. They stay there. The top 4 stay the same. Texas High, Longview, Lufkin, Marshall, and Tyler Legacy is the 5th one in our official poll. So they outweighed.
Thank you, Brandon.
I'm sure it was. Brandon's a legacy lover there. He got it was Brandon and Jeremy both voted for Tyler Legacy in the 5th.
Okay.
Hey, but we were consistent. Everybody had the top 4 the same. So we've kind of figured out who the top 4 teams are, at least right now. So, Jeremy, we split our votes. So we heard each other. We're going to have to figure something out here to gain some extra votes. All right, let's check on the 4A poll. 4A. In my poll, I have Carthage 1, Kilgore 2, Chapel Hill 3. I moved Center up to 4 this week after their big win. I got Gilmer 5, Pine Tree dropped to 6, Van 7, Sulphur Springs 8, Pleasant Grove 9, and I've got Henderson as my 10th team in the poll. Henderson had a good season at 4-1, so I've got them in at 10. What do you guys have in?
I got pretty much the same, actually. I got Carthage, Kilgore, Chapel Hill, Center as my top 4. I dropped Pine Tree to 5th, and then I have Van and Gilmer at 6 and 7 because Pine Tree beat Van and Gilmer head up. So
That's true.
and they only lost. Then they lost to Kilgore, which is our number 2 team. So I kept Pine Tree at 5, kept them ahead of Van and Gilmer. I got Sulphur Springs at 8, Pleasant Grove at 9, and I, like you, Brett, have the Henderson Lions roaring in the 10th spot.
Okay.
Man, this one's tough. I have Carthage 1, Kilgore 2, Chapel Hill 3. Maybe because I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid a little too long here, but I still have Pine Tree at 4. I probably should have put Center above Pine Tree. They've got Pleasant Grove right there. There's legacy there. I just think they're a good program. Van right behind them, then Gilmer, then Lindell.
Gilmer way down the poll. Okay. All right. All right. So here's the final poll results. Carthage is 1. Chapel Hill is moved up to 2. Kilgore 3. Center 4. Pine Tree 5. Gilmer 6. Van 7. Sulphur Springs 8. At a tie with Pleasant Grove at 8. And then Henderson is in at 10. It's interesting. Now, you can't say that I have Chapel Hill at 3, and all of us had Chapel Hill at 3, right? So somebody has Chapel Hill at 1. Well, let's go see how that vote turned out. Brandon has them at 2.
Our votes are public.
Oh, Jeremy and Brandon have them at 2. That's what it is. So how did that work out? Somebody must have had them down lower. Oh, we had some Kilgores at 4. Okay, that's what they did. So Chapel Hill is now up to 2 in the poll. That's interesting.
I don't hate it. I mean, that'll get decided in a couple of weeks.
We'll figure that out.
When Chapel Hill and Kilgore,
right? Yeah. I think the reason why I had Chapel Hill below Kilgore is Kilgore got a huge win over Carthage, and I saw how good they were, and so that to me is why I had them above Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill's played a tough schedule, but they were close to White House. They beat Lindale. They did beat Gilmer there at the end. But I think that Kilgore-Gilmer game was kind of a weird ending. Probably would have been a Kilgore win if things wouldn't have gone the way that it did. So that's kind of a weird deal. So that's why I kept Kilgore above. But needless to say that, like Kyle said, they'll figure it out in the field here in a few weeks. Nothing really surprising. That's pretty good. We're all kind of on the same path here.
Until the next poll.
Yeah, the next one's going to be interesting. You're right. It's always the most interesting poll of the night is our 3A and below poll. All right, so here's what I've got. For me, I've got Malakoff still at 1. I've got Westwood still at 2. I moved Beckville from 5 to 3 this week, just after they were so impressive against Legion Fields. I've got New Diana at 4, Jefferson at 5, Tatum at 6, Atlanta 7, Winsboro 8, Mount Enterprise at 9, and Liberty Ilo at 10.
Okay, I got my
you looked
top
at me
five.
funny, Kyle. You looked at me like you didn't like what some of the teams I put in there, Kyle.
No. I think the teams that you put in there are deserving. I also think the teams that I put in are deserving. So that's the beauty of this poll. So
I love what you got.
My top 5 stayed the same as last week. I got Malakoff 1, Westwood 2, New Diana 3, Jefferson 4, and Beckville 5.
Okay.
I corrected my mistake from last week. I moved Tatum to 6 ahead of Winsboro. I kept Winsboro at 7. I dropped Timpson out completely, and I moved in Grant Saline moved from 10 to 8 in mine. So I got Grant Saline at 8. I moved in 2 new teams to my poll. I brought in the Troop Tigers after their win. They're at 9. I put them at number 9 after their win over ARP. And then in the 10th spot, I had to show some love to the Alto Yellow Jackets for being 5-0 and in their run this year. So I decided I needed to find a team to slide in there because I had to drop a couple of teams out because I had ARP in there last week and I had Simpson. Drop both those out. Had to bring in some new teams. So brought in Troop and Alto.
Okay, Jaron, what you got?
So my top 5 are exactly KO's top 5. Got Malakoff, Westwood, New Diana, Jefferson, and Beckville. The next 2, I have Atlanta, then Tatum. I could easily put Tatum in Atlanta. We'll find out in a few weeks on that one. Then Winsboro, still have Timpson in there. I think Timpson's there. And then this 10th spot, not the 10th spot. There's a lot of guys. You mentioned some good ones, KO. You've got a 1-loss Overton team that's still hanging around there, that I think is worthy of some love too. But I've got Garrison in there, but I think it could go several different directions.
Yeah. So no love from you guys from Liberty Ilo, huh? Man,
I don't know. I'm waiting to see. I think they're a good program for sure. Coach Willard over there is a really good coach, but
the 3-point win over Bullard is interesting, but they did beat Henderson, which we have in our poll in the 4A poll, by 3. That's the only Henderson loss is to Liberty Ilo. So that's they're going to find out in district how good they are. And I still have. Did y'all have Mount Enterprise in? I still have the 4-0 Mount Enterprise team in. I think
2A so loaded. 2A so loaded on this East Texas,
especially
stretch.
Region 3. Region 3 and 2A is ridiculous.
So the good news is a lot of these teams are going to be bouncing each other to the L column. So it'll kind of start being, I don't say easier because this poll is always not very easy, but it'll make it easier on us. I think once these teams start playing, we'll be able to rank them a little bit better. But
in our TAPS teams, it's hard to get them in there, but you got a 1-loss Grace Community team who has some decent wins over some public schools there in non-district, and so we'll see. And of course, we'll talk about that game in a little bit, but Bullard, 2 losses, but still some good games. So I don't know. It's hard to get some of those TAPS guys some loves too, but.
All right. So let's see what we got here. So the final rankings here for this poll for this week is Malakoff at 1, Westwood at 2, New Diana 3, Jefferson at 4, Beckville at 5, Tatum 6, Winsboro 7, Atlanta 8, Liberty Ilo at 9, and Grand Saline at 9. They're tied. So that's what we got. What do y'all think?
I thought you were reading my poll off at first because
Yeah.
1 through 7 is the exact same, is exactly what I have put down.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent. I think to me, the main reason I moved Beckville up because what I saw, like I saw this week they just put it to a really good Elysian Fields team. So I did move them up.
They did, but here's my only caveat with that, Brett. Being at the game, it was Elysian Fields shot themselves in the foot a lot. Like it wasn't. I'm not taking anything away from Beckville because they had to capitalize on those mistakes for sure. But it wasn't like the fumble was a bad snap or a bad handoff, one of those, and then it was a muffed kickoff. So I mean, it wasn't Beckville necessarily causing turnovers as much as Elysian Fields just turning the ball over. But to Beckville's credit, they had to capitalize on that, and they did. So they're a really good team.
And some of these, we've got a lot from the same district here, so they'll end up having to beat each other at some point. You've got Jefferson, Atlanta, Liberty Islo, Tatum, all there together. So those teams will end up knocking each other out at some point. So that's going to do it for the polls. Let's pick some games for this week. Let's talk week 6 games. And I'm really looking forward to seeing who Kyle picks because, you know, he's promised the Hail Mary picks. So I'm really curious to see how Hail Mary picks are going to go for him here. Kyle, now you guys you've seen the pick'ems for having a lot of teams off this week. I think I had about half the games normally that I had to pick from. There are some really good games this week. As far as, you know, competitive and the records of being a good game. So it's actually a really tough slate of games to honestly. And some of these are different classifications, different. So it takes some actual, you know, you have to know your teams here. This is going to take some thinking. First game on the slate here is Alba Golden and Bogota Rivercrest. 4-1 Alba Golden and Bogota Rivercrest is at 4-0.
Hold up, real quick. That's my neck of the woods. It's Bogota, not Bogota.
Bogota.
You gotta wear your hat. You gotta wear your hat like this if you're from there. That's how it happens.
So it's Bogota?
It's Bogota. Yeah.
Then why don't you spell it with an O?
And all growing up, if I wore my hat like this, my dad would say, "Hey, put your hat down. You're not from Bogota." So
I just call him Rivercrest. I don't even say Bogota. I just call him Rivercrest.
Hey, and think about, about 15 years ago, that school lost football, I think, for a year or so. And so they came back. And
looking at this to me, I've got an Alba Golden team that has played pretty tough schedule. You've got a couple teams that are in our polls. They lost to Mount Enterprise, which Mount Enterprise is undefeated. They got a few votes. They beat an Overton team, which I've seen, and they held them to 12 points, which is impressive to me. They've got some impressive wins. I think this district is going to be interesting. I think Cooper's kind of down, but I think Honeygrove is going to be an interesting matchup for Alba Golden later on. But I'm going to go with Alba Golden this one, guys. I think from what they've shown so far in their pre-district schedule, they've challenged themselves, and they've come up with 4 out of 5 wins and some good solid opponents. So I'm going to go with Alba Golden to get the win in this one.
So I said I was going to throw Hail Marys, but not on this one. I think this is too far of a Hail Mary. I think we're backed up to about the 30 on this one, and our own 30. I don't know if we can reach the end zone for it. So I'm with you, Brett. Basically, everything you just said is everything I agree with. I think Alba Golden's win over Overton and only allowing 12 points is what sticks out to me. I don't like the fact that the Como-Picton game last week was so close, by 14 points.
Yeah.
That concerns me, but I'm going to be positive and give more credit to Como-Picton and saying that they're turning that thing around after they picked up a win the week before. So maybe they're getting better, and it's not an indictment on Alba Golden. But this week against Rivercrest, give me the Alba Golden Panthers.
Yep. Same thing. I think that schedule's a little more battle tested than Rivercrest schedule's been, and so I'm going to ride with AG.
All right, the next game on the schedule, one of couple of teams that are in our polls that we just talked about, Atlanta Jackrabbits and the Jefferson Bulldogs. Man, this is a tough one for me right here because I'm looking at the schedule. Jefferson has some impressive wins. They've laid water out of the water. Pittsburgh's not a real good football team this year. Newton is a name on there that you see as an impressive win for them. Atlanta, they've done everything that they've put on the schedule. They've beat everybody except Pleasant Grove. We know how good Pleasant Grove is. But the game is in Jefferson. And I think Jefferson is a little bit better football team than Atlanta. So I'm going to go with the Jefferson Bulldogs to win at home over Atlanta.
This is my Hail Mary, but it's only from about the 30-yard line of the opponents. This isn't a big Hail Mary because I think this is kind of a toss-up game. I think it's more of a pick 'em than anything. But I think what you said, Brett, I think Jefferson's schedule has been a little tougher. And Atlanta, 7-point wins over Hooks and New Boston don't really give me a warm, fuzzy feeling about this going to Jefferson and having to take on the Bulldogs. But I think Jefferson's going to win, but I'm picking Atlanta. This is a Hail Mary. I'm picking Atlanta.
I love Coach Taylor, what Coach Taylor's doing over there with Jefferson. He obviously coming from PG. He knows how to coach football. I mentioned him a while ago, but that running back they have, Cameron Williams, he's just over 1,000 yards 5 games in the season, right? He's averaging just over 200 a game. Dude is legit 13 touchdowns on the season. That dude is a difference maker. He's a player. I just think I don't know if Atlanta's going to be able to stop him. I think Jefferson wins this ball game.
All right. Game 3. Grapeland takes on undefeated Alto in a district matchup here. There's a couple things to look at here. A couple of common opponents. You've got Cayuga played both teams. Alto shut them out 34-0. Grapeland played them a little closer, so 36-14. Groveton also is a common opponent. Grapeland beat them 48-6. And then Alto only beat them 28-12. So one game went one way, one the other. So you can kind of throw that out the window. It's at home. Alto's undefeated. I'm going to take the Alto team to take this one. I think the Yellow Jackets are just a little bit better than Grapeland. It is at home, so I'm going to go with them.
This is the Red Zone game of the week. So I will be in Alto this week for this matchup, Grapeland and Alto. I think this is a fun one. I think it's going to be a really interesting contest. Like we talked about earlier, Grapeland's 2 losses are to 2 really good teams. Frankston by 3 on the road, and then Overton last week at home by 5 points. So Alto's wins aren't that impressive, when you look at it on paper. But when you look at what Alto's done recently, they just went 0-10 last year. So for them to be 5-0, this is almost identical to what Overton did last year when they had a winless year and then they turned it around and rolled undefeated. So really interesting matchup between Alto and Grapeland. I think that, I don't know, I really like Coach Wood over down there in Grapeland. I really enjoy talking to him, and I think he's doing a good job with that program. I think because Alto's at home, I think Alto's going to win the game. So I'm picking the Grapeland Sandies.
I like your theory. I think they're going to win, but I'm going to pick that. But see what you're going to do, Kyle, next week when you come back, you've lost these games. Like, well, I really picked the other team.
Exactly. Well, no, I'm not saying I really picked the other team, but just wanting to say, I knew that team was going to win, but I had to throw a Hail Mary. So I'm just, prefacing all these.
This is only week 6, Kyle. I think you're throwing the Hail Mary a little too early, but
I'm in 29th place, bub. I need to throw a Hail Mary.
I mean, that's fine.
It's Hail Mary time.
I'm just
it. Now maybe these Hail Marys get me back in the game, and then I can start really picking again. But
or they could.
And these Hail Marys I'm throwing this week are not too far off. I can see Grapeland beating Alto. I can see Atlanta beating Jefferson. I can see these. It's not too far-fetched. I just couldn't go with Rivercrest, though. That's where I draw the
Well,
line.
Well, here's the problem, guys. I can't really see you guys on the leaderboard. You're kind of far down, and I'm gonna have to get my glasses out and my binoculars.
Not with me. I'm on first page. I'm on first page.
You are the very last one on the first page.
I'm on
Jerry.
first
That's
page.
first page.
I'm on
That's
first
page. I see you, Jaron. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're several behind me, so you got.
But here's the deal. Actually, I think I'm only 3, and 2. Yeah, you're at 34. I'm at 31. I think.
Brett's exaggerating this stuff, ain't he?
And at the very bottom.
I had that one week. That 1 week. Besides that, I've been doing just
well.
fine.
Unfortunately, you have to be consistent every week.
We'll talk in a few weeks. All right. So here's the deal. So Grape went Alto. I struggled with this one, and you kind of alluded to this. I'm not like super impressed with Alto's wins. I mean, it's a win. I mean, I'm impressed. Anytime you win a football game, that's impressive. Don't get me wrong. But and that 3-point win over Cushing, I'm like, Grapeland's played a tough schedule, but it's hard to go against a undefeated team. So I'm going with Alto.
All right.
Look, there's a game right there. There's 2 games in a row that I'm gonna get a game on y'all, just like that, by just tossing these little Hail Marys.
If you get a game on us every game this whole week, then you might be on the first page. Well, or we'll be.
I still don't know if that's enough.
I'm real close on this one. So you may give me. I'm real close on this one. It's like 51-49. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Game 4. You got Tatum versus Liberty Allo in a matchup of that district we talked about a while ago with Atlanta and Jefferson. So you got the top 4 teams that we think playing each other this week. The game is in Texarkana. I'm just looking at the schedule here, and Tatum's only loss was a road game against Newton, and we know how good Newton is. Liberty Allo, Pittsburgh, not a good team. Henderson, we don't know how good a team they are. They did get a win by 3. Carthage, we know they got blown out. That's we don't really count that one. But Bullard, they only beat them by 3. Bullard, not a good team to me. So to me, I don't really see anything impressive in Liberty Allo's schedule. I think they're good. I think they make the playoffs in this district, but I don't think they're beating Tatum this week. I'm taking the Tatum Eagles.
Yeah, everything you just said, I agree with. I think Liberty Allo has beat who's on their schedule, but except that Carthage game. But Tatum's just been more impressive to me. So I think Tatum will win. So give me Liberty Allo.
So the last 2 weeks, Tatum's had over 500 yards of total offense in both weeks. All right. This past week, 11 different Tatum Eagles touched the ball, carried the ball. That's a hard offense to stop. And I thought after losing some quality guys last year, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But, man, and I've talked about it every week, they run a system and they're proud of it, and they run it well. And they run a system that when you got guys that know it and you got a good line blocking for you, you can score a lot of points. So I've got Tatum over the Leopards.
All right. Game 5, Elysian Fields and Union Grove. Now, this is another one of those. I think this is a toss-up one right here as well. Looking at the schedule here, Elysian Fields, they've been impressive. They beat Hawkins by 3. You look at Union Grove, they also beat Hawkins, but they beat them by 1. So, I don't know if that really matters too much. The game is at home for Union Grove. I think that helps them, but I think the Yellow Jackets are angry after last week. I think they're going to come off of last week's loss to Beckville. They're going to be ticked off how they played. They're going to clean up what they did, and I think they get back on the winning track, and they beat Union Grove in this game.
Yeah, I think Elysian Fields is going to clean up their mistakes that they had against Beckville. And I think Elysian Fields is, like you said, they're going to come out angry. The Hawkins win for Union Grove surprised me. The Elysian Fields one kind of threw me off a little bit, but the Union Grove beating Hawkins. Hawkins going 0-2 to open district play after how they started the season is a little surprising to me, but kudos to Union Grove and coach over there, Coach Adams, right? Coach Kyle Adams is over there in Union Grove.
Yeah,
No.
he was at Ore City and then went
That's
over
right.
to.
So, he's doing a good job over there with that program. I think Elysian Fields will win this game, so I'm picking Union Grove.
So, so this is one where that week where I really struggled, I went with my heart, not my head, and so my heart, because I really enjoy Coach Crow and what he's doing with the Yellow Jackets. My nephews go to school there. That's where my heart goes, but my head's saying Union Grove because it's in Union Grove, and so I pick Union Grove.
All right.
You're not supposed to pick any with me, Jaron. That ruins the whole gimmick.
I'm sorry.
All right. Game 6, Big Sandy and Beckville in another game in that district. Let's see. You've got Big Sandy so far. They beat Winona. They're not a good team. They beat Como-Picton. Not really a good team. Ore City's struggling hard. They haven't beaten a good team on their schedule yet, and they're not going to. Beckville's going to get this win by a lot.
It is Beckville's homecoming too next week. Should mention that. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think again, Big Sandy plays who's on their schedule. We just talked about this Alba Golden team. We think Alba Golden's a pretty good football team. They beat Como-Picton by 14. Big Sandy beat them by 61. So I know it's different points in the season. I get it, and I'm not saying Big Sandy's a better football team than Alba Golden. But all I'm saying is that Big Sandy has been impressive this year. They put up 73 on Ore City, and then had to come back and beat Harleton after being down in that one by 14 early on. So I like the grit and I like the fight of this Big Sandy team. With all that being said, they got Jordan Prince over in Beckville. They just scored 6 tutties last week. It's homecoming night for the Bearcats. Beckville's going to win this game. I'm picking Big Sandy. Beckville's going to win this game.
Oh, my gosh. It's gonna be funny if you like everyone that you said you were gonna pick, you would have had a 10-0 week, Kyle.
It'll be on record though. There's record of it that I am picking these teams.
All right, Jaron, who you got?
Can't lose this week, Brett. You can't lose.
Yeah, Beckville. Beckville.
Okay. Next one on the schedule here, we've got the Henderson Lions and the Kilgore Bulldogs. Shout out to Coach Baker over there at Henderson. He's got the team playing well this season, but they're not yet there at Kilgore's level. I'm taking the Kilgore Bulldogs in this one.
Well, listen, I'm real impressed with this Henderson team. I am. I mean, when you look at their one loss, we think Liberty Allo is pretty good, and that's their only loss on the year. So, and it was by 3 points. So I think this Henderson team has been really impressive, especially putting up 62 points against Gainesville and Palestine in back-to-back weeks. With that being said, Kilgore is still Kilgore. Kilgore got them dogs over in Kilgore, and they're at home this week. I think they aren't overlooking this football game either, even though Chapel Hill's looming the following week. I think that they will come out ready to play. I think Kilgore wins this game, so I'm taking Henderson.
Oh, my gosh. I thought you weren't throwing the Hail Mary on every single one of them, Kyle.
It's not. It hadn't. I picked Alba Golden in the first one.
One. Okay. All right. All right, Jaron, who you got?
So I've got a pinky toe on the Henderson train, but it's not there yet. So I'm going with Kilgore.
All right. Next up, game 8, Texas High and White House. You look at White House, they've got wins over Paris and Dallas Wilson. A couple of losses to some 4A teams from this pretty good district, Chapel Hill and Kilgore. Lost to Mount Pleasant last week. This game is in White House, but sorry, Wildcats, but Texas High is going to come into this house and they're going to do some damage and then go back to Texarkana. So I'm taking Texas High in this one.
I was at this game last year when T-High and White House played, and it was it was a good football game. Texas High, though, definitely, flexed their muscle on White House last year. That loss last week for White House to Mount Pleasant really puzzles me. It confuses me. I didn't see that coming. Shout out to Coach Cluley and the Tigers for getting the dub. That's a big win, and that win. And I'm not trying to overreact to this, but that win could turn their season around. I mean, that's a district win over a really good opponent that could just flip a switch and they found something and now can go on a run. So big win for Mount Pleasant. I'm concerned about White House, and then you have Texas High that you have to contend with. That comes to town at least, but you have to contend with Texas High. It's a tall task for Coach Kyle Westerberg and the White House Wildcats over there. So Texas High, I think, wins this game, but I'm taking the Wildcats.
So one thing that in watching White House the past few years, they got talent, but one thing they struggle with is consistency, I think, on the week-in, basis. That's why that one loss to Mount Pleasant's not like freaking me out. They consistently drop some eggs, every now and then, in the tough schedule that they have. So, but that Texas High team's good. They're historically good. That game where they were down to Fayetteville, I think is who it was, and came back crazy from a crazy point spread and won that game was big. And Texas High is just a really good program. So I'm going with Texas High.
All right. Game 9, Rockwall and Longview, 2 DFW teams, according to the professor. Man, Longview, they started off the year, got Lufkin and Marshall, and then they've lost consecutive games to South Oak Cliff and a Ruston, Louisiana team. I think they get back on track this week, and they look to try to get back in the winning way and try to take this district. I think this week against Rockwall, they're going to get the win. The Forney game might be interesting, but this week, Rockwall, I think they take the win.
Oof. Man, according to Dave Campbell, it's a toss-up. No team's favorite. It's got a 0 by next to both of them. So, according to Dave Campbell, this one is an absolute toss-up. This Rockwall team, man, they're 2 losses to Lake Travis by 3 on the road in Austin to Lake Travis. That's an impressive loss if there is such a thing. Then they got destroyed at home by North Crowley, but North Crowley may win a state title this year. It's highly possible.
One of the better teams in the state. One of the better teams in the state.
Exactly. So then they came out last week at home and just blew out Roy City, which I don't think Roy City's very good. We talked about it. Longview, that win over Lufkin, it looks a little better now. I think with how Lufkin's playing ball, that win that they had, that tough win on the road in the rain to beat a very good Lufkin team now. I think that Longview, even though they had that loss to South Oak Cliff, that loss to a Louisiana team, they're coming back at home, and Coach John King has had essentially 3 weeks to get these kids back on the winning track. After that loss to South Oak Cliff, a loss to Louisiana team, and then a bye week. You've had 3 weeks now to kind of eat on that loss, chew on that loss a little bit, those losses, I should say. I think Longview wins this game. I think Longview goes out at home and wins the game, so I'm going to take Rockwall.
So that Ruston
actually
team,
no, I'm taking Longview. I'm sorry, I'm taking Longview. Dadgummit, I'm going with the Lobos. I'm not Hail Mary in this one. I'm taking the Lobos. Sorry, Jim.
No, you're good. So that Ruston team, state contended 5A team in Louisiana. South Oak Cliff is South Oak Cliff. I know they had tough loss earlier in the season. I don't think Coach King loses 3 games in a row. I just don't think that happens. So I got Longview.
All right. And game 10, the game that Jared and I will be at Friday night at Clyde Perkins Stadium on the campus of Grace Community. The Brook Hill God coming to town to take on Grace Cougars. This game was last year was a really good one. Grace won in Bullard. This year, not just a rivalry game; it's actually a district matchup. I look at the schedule. I've seen Brook Hill and what they've done. They gave Austin Regents last week a run for their money for a lot of that game. I mean, it was a really good game. Regents was a state runner-up last year in TAPS. And so I was impressed by that. They lost a couple of quarterbacks in their other loss on the road at Frisco Legacy, had to play with a third string and still almost got the win there. So I've seen some good stuff from Brook Hill. They've had a few injuries, but I think this is a big game for them. I look at Grace and what they've done. They've beaten Queen City. I don't know how good Queen City is. Let's see. They haven't won a game, so that doesn't really tell me anything about them. Pittsburgh, we know they beat them by 1. They're not the greatest team in the world this year. They haven't won a game. And New Boston is the other game they've won. They've won 1 game against Fort Worth Lake County. I don't even know who that is, but they've lost some other games as well. So I don't. There's not a win on their schedule that really impresses me. I don't know much about the TAPS Austin Brentwood team and how they. I don't know enough yet about the district and how that's going to shake out. We'll learn a little bit more as we go. But there's just no way that I couldn't pick the God to win this game on the road. But I do think that from what I see, I think they've got a really good shot at getting this win.
I don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like this being put in this position. I don't like it because I love Brook Hill. Love Coach Hubbard. Love the Brook Hill guard. Big fans. I'm also a really big fan of Coach Russell over at Grace. He was the head coach at Harmony when I first started at KMU, so got real close to him. So big fan of Coach Russell there. So this is tough. This is tough for me. And also because I'm throwing Hail Marys this game or this week, I'm not sure what the Hail Mary is at this point. Because to your point, Brett, like a 1-point win over Pittsburgh for Grace is concerning. Like and that's not a knock on Pittsburgh. They're just not a very good team this year. And then the Queen City one, the only thing I'll say about the Queen City one, Brett, we looked at this last week, I think, when we were talking about Queen City. They were brought up for some reason, I think. They're 0-5, but they lost to Grace, who we think is a pretty good football team. They lost to Harleton. Now, that was a 35-point loss. I don't know what happened there. Then a 3-point loss to Elysian Fields that we think is decent. A 1-point loss to White Oak. And a 1-point loss to Hooks. So it's not like they're just getting blown out in these games. If they, if something goes another way, maybe you're looking at a 3-2 Queen City team instead of 0-5. Not to say that, they're setting the world on fire or anything, but I don't think that's as much of an indictment on Grace as the Pittsburgh thing is, if that makes any sense. But I don't know, man. This one's tough. I think Grace is at home. Man, I can't be a part of NETSN and pick against the Brook Hill guard in a rivalry game like this. I would not be allowed back in Bullard on the Brook Hill campus.
Have you seen Sam Williams and his runs?
No.
Oh man, you guys clip some from Brook Hill highlights. This guy, Jaren's seen him run. This guy will run you over or run by you. It's the Brook Hill quarterback. He can also throw it around the yard. There was that one play was that a couple weeks ago, or was that last week, Jaren? Were you with me last week when he had that play down the sideline where
last week? Yes.
Yeah, he ran over like 2 defenders and then tightrope the sideline and ran like 60 or 70 yards to the end zone. He had another one of those plays this last week. Wasn't quite as far. They just got some dudes over there. I know Grace is going to be. I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm excited to get to call it. But man, I think Brook Hill, this could be a really big statement win early in the season for them.
I'm taking Brook Hill. Give me the guard.
Okay.
I've had this game circled. Like, even if you didn't have me on the schedule, I was going to beg you to get me on the schedule on this game to commentate this game. I've enjoyed covering the guard the few times we got to call them this season. My daughter goes to Grace. I have a lot of students that I know that go to Grace. Grace's one loss is against a really good First Baptist team out of Dallas who has beat everybody. They're undefeated. The most points scored against them is Grace at 15 points. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. Heightened emotions. Again, this game matters even more now. 3 years ago it was Brook Hill. Last 2 years it's been Grace. I really, really, really like calling Brook Hill games. I really like being a fan of the guard.
I can see where this is going. He's picking with his heart. Here he goes.
No, if I'm picking with my heart, well, I'm not even gonna say that. Give me the Grace Cougars.
Ooh. Grace Cougars. All right.
But I mean, I'm talking like 50 and a half.
Hold on.
Like to
hold on. My phone's ringing. It's Coach Hubbard.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that?
Darren's
barred from calling games anymore. Okay.
So,
here, let me put him on. Oh,
like 50 and a half at Grace and 49 and a half for Brook Hill. Okay, I mean, it's gonna be a really good game. I've been looking for. I've talked to you a lot about this game. My kids are excited. I'll be commentating this game. They'll be there in the stands. I mean, I'm excited. This has been it's been on our family calendar. We're stoked about it. So
I didn't even know that at that point when we read the schedule and you ended up on the game. It just happened to work out that way, I guess.
Yeah, it's been. I've been pumped for this game.
So,
again, I hope I'm not burning any bridges because I'm telling you, Brook Hill is a really, really, really good football team.
Well, we've got me and Jaren will be there. We'll be at Grace. Kyle, you'll remind us. Red Zone game of the week is Alto.
Grapeland at Alto.
All right, that'll be a good one. So, there's a lot of bye games this week. So, the only other NETSN game we talked about a little bit earlier is ARP will travel to Buffalo. Keith and Jason will be traveling down there to call that one. So that game will be on Friday night. So it'll be a light schedule. The center guys have the week off. Most of those teams down there. I found out
yeah,
the Poultry Festival goes on down there in Shelby County. And so all those teams are off. I think Garrison plays, and they're like the only team that they cover down there that has a game, I found that very interesting.
I know a teacher at Joaquin, and I talked with him last week. He's like, everything's about the Poultry Festival right now. Like, they're just trying to get to the Poultry Festival.
Interesting. Didn't know anything about that. All right. So, is there any other games that we didn't pick this week that you guys saw that interest you? So it is a short week. We got most of the good ones, I think.
Yeah, I'm riding that Overton train, and so that there's they're playing Tenaha on Thursday. Tenaha has not been good this season, and so I think Overton's going to run away with it. But anytime you get to watch Overton in that offense, it's fun. So,
Kyle,
I mean, we covered all the good ones, and it's a light week. There's a lot of good teams that aren't playing this week, but next week everyone will for sure be involved in district play, and we're down into the home stretch beginning next week to wrap up the regular season and see who's going to be in the playoffs.
I know. Can't believe we're halfway through the season already. Basically, it's
wow.
It's crazy. But I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for tonight's show. Thanks for K.O. Collowans and Jaren Peoples for joining tonight. Mr. NETSN Brett Swinney, we're signing off for this week's bEast from the East show, week 6. Good luck with your picks, and we'll see you next week right here on NETSN. Good night, everybody.
Lean on your brother tonight. Let your brother count on you every play tonight. Okay? And come out and have fun. The gates are locked. Ain't nobody getting out now. They can't run. The gates are locked. Let's bring the fight to them, guys. Yes, sir. All right, brother. Let's pray.
The Northeast Texas Sports Network is dedicated on delivering the most entertaining sports broadcasts in East Texas. And if you're interested in having your next sporting event streamed live, visit us online at NETSN.